Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich, and today I'm honored to have Jeff Greenwald with me. Jeff is a professional tennis player. He's an author of the book, The Best Tennis of Your Life. He's won many national championships playing tennis, and one of the things I think you're going to hear about his story today is when you can realize the connection between the mind and the body, you can maximize results. So, Jeff, thanks so much for being on today.
I'm happy to be here, Phil. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, to start your journey, you grew up in Connecticut and started to play tennis, but at one point you decided, hey, maybe I should check out a true tennis academy and move to Florida. So, talk a bit about growing up in Connecticut, learning about tennis, falling in love with tennis, and then that opportunity to move.
Yeah. When I was, about 11, 12, watching my watching my dad play with my brother, and I was on the side of the court, and I thought, I want to be out there. Yeah, and so my brother was 5 years older than me, and so I went out and kind of picked it up pretty quickly. I think I went to a camp, the Ron Holmberg tennis camp, and I was kind of homesick at the time. I didn't really want to be there, and then I turned the corner when I was there, and like, okay, I can do this, and then by the end of it, I said to my parents when they came to pick me up, I want to be a professional tennis player. So
Wow.
um, they said, "Wow, really?" And my dad, and 3 weeks later, I was on an airplane down to the Bollettieri Academy, and lived a couple years of my life down at the tennis boot camp at the time.
Amazing. Now, you talked a little bit about, the homesick of going to a camp, whether that was 4 days or a week. I would imagine moving, from north to south is probably even more of a homesick feeling. But, talk a little bit about, the experience just as a 12-year-old boy, but then also from a tennis standpoint, entering into a world where I'm sure almost everyone felt the same way that you did, and that is, man, I'd love to do this at a very high level.
Yeah, I think tennis in particular requires this competitiveness, this fire to obviously to win and so forth. And then eventually it became one of like how well can you play, in terms of
Yeah.
mastery, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But it was I loved all sports. I played baseball and some football and baseball, football, tennis, skied a little bit, and I just took to tennis. And there was something I liked, appreciated about it was all on you, which can be hard, right, and
Yeah.
nerve wracking as hell. But there's that challenge that nobody else is there to bail you out or to let you down, and you live and die by your sword. So I think that I I liked that aspect. I did leave baseball at 13. I played until 13 years old. But so yeah, that was it hooked me. And Bollettieri's, it was Lord of the Flies. A lot of good tennis players there, but you fought for your life out there on those side courts to get
Yeah.
to hopefully eventually to Nick Bollettieri's court. Right, that was the goal. So
Now, the side of competition, you mentioned that, hey, you got to be competitive. I would imagine having a brother 5 years older than you, there could have been some family battles and competition there. Talk a little bit about, that competitive edge coming out within the family dynamic.
well, interestingly, I mean, my middle brother played lacrosse. My older brother played some tennis and then baseball. He was a good baseball player. I loved watching him play. Tennis, he was again 5 years older, and I actually at I think 12, 13, I beat him. He was like a senior in high school or something. I beat him, and that was I think the end of his tennis there. But um, but I yeah, I just I really took it to went full force at 12, 13, and and then really was just all over the place trying to hit that yellow ball, trying to get better.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing is, I think so many kids grow up having a desire to make a sport a career, right? Or a profession. And I think oftentimes there's a level that you think you need to compete at, and then an effort and energy that's gone in. And then there's probably another level above that if you really want to, be one of the best in the world. And I think so many parents are maybe just not even aware of what it takes, the amount of energy and effort to get to that level. How today, when you're helping, young kids and families, really pursue the goal of whatever their goal is, right? But really help them understand the level of intensity that's going to take to reach that goal.
Right. I think there was, I guess maybe a misperceptions of what it takes. Certainly tennis requires an enormous amount of commitment, and it's not easy as a teenager without a real push too, or being
Yeah.
at an academy where it's structured and you're contained, right? And so. Um, Yeah, I think, now it's so competitive, and to get, D1 college and to even D3s are now really good. And so it does require enormous sacrifice. That being said, it's gotten to such a point where I think the joy has been lost with, in many cases, it becomes a job for a lot of these players, and the families are, stressed and trying to chase the points in the tournaments. It's expensive, it's stressful on the family. Families move, so, and there's this whole sibling aspect, which they
Yeah.
can be left behind because tennis starts to envelop the family, and it creates this level of urgency and intensity. So um, there's a demand to play a lot and to keep up. At the same time, I think it's still good to play multiple sports. Um, and I think it's kids who want to play club tennis now. Is a good thing, and it doesn't need to be all in um, all day. You can give up your academics, give up everything to get into a D1 school, and maybe be burned out by the time you get there. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting, challenging road to navigate these days.
Absolutely. Now, as you are progressing and getting better in your high school days, inevitably you are really good, and so you start to get the opportunity to consider, well, what college would I want to go to, and you end up picking the University of Cal. Talk a little bit about how you picked Cal, and then moving. Yeah, you'd move north to south, and now we're going east to west.
Right. Well, in fact, the first year I went to Auburn University in Alabama for a year under Hugh Thompson, South African player, good player at the time, and became, I think, a good senior player too. But I went there for a year, and there were maybe five South Africans on the team and myself. And it just wasn't exactly the program I wanted. I do like I just the thought of California and the beach, and the schedule happened to be good at UCSB as well. So I transferred, and I wasn't, I guess, clearly opposed to being adventurous
Yeah.
and traveling across the country, even at obviously 12, almost 13 to Bolletary. So I was kind of always game to do what needed to be done, or go try to get to a place that appealed to me. And I had a wonderful experience at UCSB, um, and the team was great, and I still have those friends to this day. So it was a good choice. I think it's important to make those choices, based on a variety of things, not just. I mean, a lot of people do, just because of the tennis program, but I think you need to kind of consider the academics, the environment, the weather, and all of that. And UCSB was certainly delivered in many, many realms. So,
Yeah. Now, as you're, progressing through high school and into college, um, I think oftentimes athletes, we can tie our identity to the sport we're playing. We can tie our identity to the win or the loss, right? And you mentioned earlier, hey, one thing I've always enjoyed about tennis is that at the end of the day, it, falls on me, right? Unless you're playing doubles, then you can blame someone else. And
Right,
it goes right.
right,
Hey, it's me versus the other person. If I didn't win, well, that's on me. I should have,
right.
performed better. So
Hmm.
when you were in those younger years, did you have that cognitive recognition of that, or was that something that, hey, in those years, there were the emotional highs and lows depending on how you were performing or how you were winning and what your esteem looked like for yourself?
Um, I think when you're young and through those teenage years, you obviously don't have a lot of experience, right?
No.
And therefore perspective. And so you do rely on results to inform you on how well you're doing and what your potential is, and yeah, and what other role models might say or feel, and how interested they are in your game.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that the winning and the losing aspect, which is what continues to bring have people pick up the phone and call me, is it's so intense when you're young, and it is for the parents as well, because parents want their kids to be happy, coaches want to do a good job, and observable results are often the primary metric. I think I
Yeah.
talk about finding new other metrics in addition to that, um, but yeah, I'd say that your identity is forming, right? So you don't have a real sense of yourself yet, and tennis, when you're going all in like that, can become very stressful and threatening, because if you lose, your self-worth takes a hit. And that's the connection that is so that happens, that can be really damaging, is that kids who don't have that balance, or the families don't have the balance, the self-worth gets attached to results, right? And so then it becomes, then kids are playing safe and tight, and the parents are wondering why they're not playing well in tournaments as they are in practice. And it's it's a pressure cooker. And yeah, being isolated, it's all you, I think. And then with social media, it adds a whole component, which we did not have at the time, as you bring up. That's very different too.
Yeah.
Now, much more challenging at this point.
Absolutely. Now, in the college ranks, you were able to one be arguably the best player on the team, but also be a leader of a team. So, talk a little bit about leadership within a sport where it is a lot based on individual performance, but how maybe even so much more it's showing up and what you bring to the table yourself that can be leading by example in a real way.
So I think with tennis and the team, for example, at UCSB, and in general, I think it's a team sport, but it's different than other actual basketball
Yeah.
and soccer, etc. You still are performing individually, other than doubles, but and that's a different dynamic, and a good one, fun one for players. But when you I think that the leadership is happens, actions speak louder than words, I think. And I think one of my contributions to the team was fighting hard till the end. I believe that was either natural or ingrained, or both, that you just don't give up. So is you could be down and out, and I now, don't get me wrong, I got extremely frustrated, I had a temper and all that, and I learned the hard way. But but nevertheless, like, I would fight, and never, and I think when your teammates see you and pulling out matches because you just dug in for the team, for yourself, and I think that consistency and effort, and fight is very it's very contagious and appealing. So, and then, I think that the team rallies around that and begin to do it themselves too. And that really, I think, creates that momentum for teams.
Yeah. Now, I'd love for you to talk about that because I think, that buying in and giving everything you have until the final, point is scored is something that you either condition yourself that this is the way I operate and I'm going to continue to do that, or you start giving up early and you start to notice that's a pattern and it carries on with you in life. And I think for you, if I recall correctly, one of your tennis matches, you were down maybe 5-2 in the high school days, and then had a great comeback. And so it seems like that's a consistent part of who you are. And so we'd love for you to just, talk about how once you buy into that, that really just becomes a part of who you are, not well, I do this, at certain times.
It's a great question. The life, I guess what I felt early and confronted and continue to is when life throws you these curveballs, or you're down in the match, and it looks it's certainly uncertain. It's not clear how it's going to go. You're going to win, you're going to lose. And if you can get your quote game back, but there's a point there, a pivot, a moment of pivot where do you accept the challenge? Do you accept the fact that you're nervous and you just missed an easy forehand or double faulted or whatever the situation, got a bad line call, and all the circumstances and there's just a plethora of different options there in terms of what can happen. And those moments are the ones that define us, and we define ourselves by making these choices of how are we going to smile when we're mad? Are we going to, commit to the ball and hit through it and release on the ball, even though we feel tight and we don't want to miss? You have that permission. So giving yourself permission to miss, but there's all of these moments that we're faced with, whether on the court or off the court, and how do we respond to it, right? And that is unique. It's personal. It may look like you're not trying, but then you find the fight at some point. I just believe that taking life as a challenge and seeing things as an opportunity, turning them around in some way, that's the fighting spirit. And at the end of the day, what else do we have? We can't control outcomes fully, and so what we can control our reaction to it, right? To the things that look really, really daunting, and some people learn how to thrive on that and build on it.
So good. That's so good. Now, after college, you end up joining the ATP, and after just shortly after that, you end up moving to Germany. So, talk a little about the that kind of phase of life, joining the ATP, and then the decision to head over to Germany.
So, after I finished in '93, playing the tour for a couple of years, I went to work at the ATP Tour in Florida, in Ponte Vedra, which was kind of a cool first job, after playing on the tour for a bit and playing tennis my whole life, and then working on the other side of the fence, in marketing, sponsorships, and learn, just getting familiar with the working world, if you will. And after a couple of years, I had an itch to coach. I thought maybe coaching tennis would be cool. And then I still loved to play. I still had curiosity. I was only 25 or 6. And so I got an opportunity to coach tennis in Germany and play at a club. So I had a couple contracts there to play and coach, and I took it. And in I guess it was 93, maybe, it was 93, that I went to Germany. So I guess I came off the tour in 91, and then 93, I was at the ATP Tour, and then I went to Germany for a couple of years. And that was a great experience, learned to speak German fluently, and met a bunch of great people, and it was there that you talk about these moments of reflection and who knew in the moment. But this was a very defining moment where I was on the court picking up balls. I was coaching junior players at the time, and I just realized that this is not. I didn't feel like it was my future. I didn't feel like coaching tennis was exactly it. And I thought in that moment, psychology. I thought, because I've always liked to write, I've been very curious my whole life. My high school
Yeah.
yearbook said, with prophecies, Jeff Greenwald will still be asking why in the year 2003 or five or whatever, and they were right. And I'm a curious person, so I thought psychology, and then I thought, well, what about sports psychology? And this was again in '95, and that's where I started researching schools and came back and went to graduate school. And I went in initially for sports psychology, but I got interested in clinical psychology. So then
Yeah.
I did both. And yeah, and ever since 1998, I've been practicing clinical and sports psychology. So it worked out. My vision there sort of worked out into a career that I enjoy, and helping lots of people. So
Yeah. So on the, sports psychology and, I use it as the term sports psychology, but I think there's a lot of people that are listening that are maybe more business, right? But business psychology is, hey, how do we perform at our best, right? I mean, that's the goal. How do we eliminate a lot of the things that are going on between these 6 inches and, perform at our highest level? So as you start to get into the world of sports psychology, and working with different individuals, were there certain patterns that you would notice with folks, either on life experiences or events that had happened that were starting to either begin to form, fog in the brain, or be road bumps on their ability to get to the next level?
absolutely. Early days, I worked with Jim Loehr for a little bit down in Florida, world renowned sports psychologist, and moved into the corporate world with the mental training, mental coaching, and helping executives learn the skills of professional athletes, the routines, the mindset, the awareness, managing thoughts and emotions, ultimately managing your energy, which is what we have. And
Yeah.
from that, and with my own experience, I definitely noticed and helped some companies and CEOs and surgeons and so forth who I worked with to help create the conditions, an optimal performance, um, in terms of communication and being um, direct, and just how to listen well. And so I did do some of that work, and also helping executives manage their own reactions to stress and pressure. Because really, when we get down to it, pressure and stress, as you know, whether it's on the court in a 2 to 3 hour confined place with rules and a score, which is very, has its own challenge, right?
Yeah.
But then you open up the playing field to an office and boss and expectations, which is can be a real killer for anybody,
Yeah.
athletes and non-athletes. And so it's learning how to, I guess the part you asked about is sort of learning how to reframe thoughts and not just go with the first thought, and learning to step back and reset, and not, again, um, kind of give in to your natural automatic thought, the feelings that may come from your conditioning and psychology and the way you think about things. So, and the worry and fear of not performing well, and how all, fear in particular affects people, athletes, non-athletes, and managing fear, learning how to to sort of fight that good fight, if you will, be aware of it when it comes, pivot, is a psychological, emotional experience. And learning the skills of athletes is super helpful for anybody.
Yeah. So two things that brings to mind, you talk about fear. Oftentimes, the fear can be, well, what if this doesn't go right, right? Or what if this doesn't, I shouldn't even say right. What if it doesn't go the way I want it to go, right?
Right, right.
And that's a reality many times in life is that, hey, I've got one way that I want it to go, but then it doesn't quite go like that. And, I think there's the fine balancing act of, mentally we want to be positive. We want to think about, hey, this is how I want to envision things to go. But the reality is that very rarely in life do things go exactly as I have kind of envisioned them to go in my perfect outcome. So how do you encourage people to, as we're kind of mentally thinking about things before they ever happen, how do I prepare myself to be in the right mindset that I'm focused on my ideal outcome, but realizing that, hey, when the ideal outcome has this other bump that I never saw coming, I can still, plow through that and get to the end and desired goal.
Yeah, that's a great question. You're bringing up against the such an important, a roadblock in many ways, which is the expectations. And all athletes will talk about learning to manage expectations, right? And my book, the new book, The Mental Edge for Young Athletes, that I just released about a month ago, I talk about letting go of expectations,
Mhm.
and because expectations, it's typically on the outcome, and
Yeah.
we only have partial control over that. Obviously, we have control over our reactions as we're talking about, and so I help people set intentions that matter to them,
Hmm.
intentions that they are connected to. There's some emotional connection to, and values that they care about, being courageous and committed, and good work ethic and fighting to the end, and these things. Expectations really are a setup for people to be disappointed. Um,
Mm.
and it gets into overlaps with the, you should win and you should this and you should that. And the problem with that is that, um, if you win, then it's what was expected. So you don't get necessarily much joy out of that on if you're looking at it
Yeah.
from outcome perspective. And if you don't, then you're a failure, right? So the
Mm.
shoulds and the expectations are definitely the most challenging, probably for people to let go of, and that is a constant battle to come back to mastery, come back to what you have control over, come back to your specific intentions that you set, and trying to not let the circumstances, the people, the mind reading of what people will say if you win or lose, or this goes well or it doesn't, and learning to manage them, and ultimately, as I talk also about, is play on your own terms, learning how to play on your terms, no matter what, win or lose. You'll feel you'll feel good, satisfied if you went in and did what you said you were going to do. You kept your word to yourself, and you can live with that. And I think that's really helpful when it comes to these expectations.
Yeah. Now, on, a different kind of side of the brain and the psychology, and you know this way better than I do, so you might say, actually, Phil, what you're going to ask is very connected to that, is, how we kind of find our inner drive, right? I think for so many people there are folks that say, man, the expectations that were placed on me drove me to excel at a high level, right? Without those expectations, I don't know if I would have gotten up at 6 a.m. I don't know that I would have done the extra work to get there. And then I think you hear other people who, maybe it's a family dynamic or it's a coach, right? And those expectations are placed on them and they become this weight, right? This vest that's just holding them back because, to your point, they're so afraid of not reaching the expectation that it becomes almost a hindrance. So as you look at, maybe different personalities, is it how we internalize, certain things can be better or worse for us? Or would you say, that idea of an expectation, really we should reframe that and, you'll probably be better off regardless of how you're interpreting that?
It's a really fantastic question, and a few things on that. One, the research shows that expectations um, are can be good and fine. as long as
Yeah.
there's support in your environment, as
Mhm.
long as people are building you up and you're learning how to, support yourself and be confident and
Yeah.
all these things and build competency, then having expectations, in the right way, which we'll talk about, it can be very, very effective. And I think
Yeah.
it's normal to have expectations. The more and to have a vision. Okay, you want to be number one in the world. Okay, like that's if that's your goal or whatever your goal vision is, great to have that. And then what we all want to do is get back to what are the things that are going to get me to
Yeah.
that place, what, and can you connect with it deeply enough, and this is really the key, where the mastery of it, the day-to-day challenge and it's then setbacks, that you're patient enough because um, you're executing on things that really matter to you, and you're doing it in the way that you feel good about, and you're going for your shots, and you're under pressure. You're feeling you're willing to do that. You're willing to step up in these under pressure in these tough moments. The
Yeah.
expectations at that point are not about the outcome, because right, so there the
Right.
expectation that you will put out a good effort till the end, the expectation that you will focus and refocus and reset, the expectation is that you won't wallow in the last bad conversation you had, or
Yeah.
stress with your coach or parent, or and so the expectation is about what you have control over at the end of the day, right? And
Yep.
that's in support of then a vision you have of achievement, that works very, very well.
I love it. That's so good. Now, in addition to entering into the world of sports psychology and clinical psychology, on top of that, you were also continuing to play tennis, and you are playing at a very high level. So, talk a little bit about in the world of tennis with the age brackets that they break folks into, you and where you were, and then kind of the realization of like, I believe that I can be better than where I'm at.
Yeah, so that's an interesting um, uh, sort of, I guess, journey. That when I was here, I moved back from Germany, and then in
Yeah.
school, I started to apply. It was a great opportunity to apply the principles and tools I was learning. And I heard about the men's open tennis in Northern California. So I started playing these prize money tournaments using what I was learning in school, and um, weeding things out that I didn't think really were realistic. And so I got to be my own guinea pig a little bit,
Yeah.
and I started, I was playing very well. I started playing better and better. And a friend of mine said, you should play these age group tournaments, UST age group. And I said, well, what are those? He said, well, there's like the 35s and 40, 45. I didn't know anything about them, but I went in and I played the 35 national hard courts, and I won that, in the singles and doubles. I happened to beat the number one player in the world there in the quarterfinals. And people were watching like, who is this new guy?
Yeah.
And it was fun though. I really like to challenge myself. So for me, it was just another challenge, an opportunity to go play and have fun with it. Um, and so I did that, and that's when I got to number one in the world in the 35s. And
Yeah.
then I just continued to play in the 40s, 45s. I'm 50, in the 55s now, and I just I play a couple a year, and and I won the 45 world. So I still hit with some college kids still, and I'm able to still move pretty well, amazingly somehow. Though I know Father Time is undefeated, I get it, but so far so good. But it's not forever. But I've really enjoyed, and most importantly, the people that I've met
Yeah.
through tennis, and in my later years, having played at a higher level,
Yeah.
coming back. I think for me the most interesting and um, um, yeah, inspiring time was when I was about 36, and which was about to 11 years after I finished the pro tour in 91. And I was playing guys, 50 in the world, 100 in the world, and going 3 sets with them and playing on pretty big stages, big tournaments, and where I was a wild card and I got in and all that. And that was super fun and really sort of demonstrated that mentally how much these tools can help, and having a place to go. I talk about it now as a remote control, and then you put buttons on the remote. You're the one who has to press the buttons. But I had then essentially a remote control. I didn't as a kid growing up playing tennis. I didn't, once things weren't going well, it was just hoping and being frustrated. And so I think it's really helpful to have options when things go off the rails, and you can reset and have confidence ultimately that you can reset and adjust is a big deal in terms of your belief.
I love that. I love that visual of a remote control. And, you didn't just play. I think you have 11 national championships under your belt, #1 ranking in the world. You excelled at a very high level, but I want to highlight what you just mentioned there towards the end, and that is the ability to have things go differently than what you had wanted them to, and now having this set of tools to handle that event, opposed to before it was just like, what do I do more, right? Like more is better. I'll just, try harder. And it's like, well, no, then all of a sudden you're, hitting the ball too hard, or you're trying to put it in the exact right spot instead of just get into the play and make them make a mistake. Or I think in the business world, right? You're having a meeting at 9 o'clock. It doesn't go the way you thought it was going to go, but now you have a meeting at 10 o'clock and you have to show up, and you have to perform really well. Otherwise, you're going to create a spiral of bad meetings and the day goes wrong, right? So how, tangibly in, a few minutes, can people start, creating that remote control for themselves? So, hey, something didn't go quite right. All right, now I have my cue that it didn't go right. I need to cue myself to recognize and then, mentally work through that or adjust. How can someone do that tangibly?
Well, I'll try to do it in just a couple minutes. It's a topic like this. I'll start with the fact that the one thing that separates the human brain from the animal kingdom is that we can think about thinking. We can think about our thoughts. We can know that we had a thought, right?
Yeah.
Now, as a kid, no one ever told me that, but
yeah.
Now, and so there was just you something bad happened, and that was the way it was, and it was all either good or bad. That's sort of the mindset when you're young.
Yep.
Until you learn that there's this space between what happens and how you react, and that space is what's created and what you can create, and it's choice. Ultimately, in that moment, you get. That's the one thing we get too, is choice and how we react and respond. So when you realize, and in tennis or in anything, we're the instrument, we're the energy source of whatever we're doing. It's our job to actually monitor, be aware, self-reflect, self-regulate, whatever term you want to use, to manage your instrument, right? And there's there's a $100 cello and a $5 million cello. But in any case, how do you manage yourself? And that creates a huge opportunity. So this remote control is recognizing that you can have a thought and it doesn't mean it's true or it will come true. It's not fact. You can let the car go by, the thought go by. You can, change the channel, and you can refocus on something that's actually relevant and you have control over, right? Yep. And redirect your attention, which will change the way you're playing or change the way you're experiencing something. So the opportunity there is huge to really shift the way you're experiencing things, perceiving things, and the way you're performing, because you recognize that you have choice, and you're not an animal. You're a different kind of an animal, but a smarter animal, I guess, is why we're here. Yeah, not the strongest, but the smartest.
Yes,
Too
that's
smart for our
good.
own good sometimes. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's good. Now, as you are, working with different individuals, the I'm sure the growth is probably one of the more rewarding parts of what you do, right? You meet someone that, gosh, they just aren't getting over the hump, or they continuously are having the same situation, and then, hey, we work through it. At the same token, we're all humans. We have a propensity to revert back to our normal or what we've done before. And so sometimes I'm sure there's points where you go, what are we doing? Like, we've talked through this 18 times. Like, why are we doing the same thing for the 19th time that we've talked about? So talk a bit about managing that from your side of things of, hey, I understand and we're getting growth, but then at the same token, every once in a while the reversion back to normal, and not getting frustrated from your standpoint, but also helping them be like, all right, hey, that's not who we are, right? Just because you've done it this way, we can change that story moving forward.
Yeah, no, it's you're talking about, growth and evolution, right? And progress, not perfection. And change is hard, and it takes tenacity to make change. You have to really want it in whatever domain. And but with effort and focus and will, you can do a lot. You can achieve a lot, and hopefully enjoy the process as best you can. Right? And I think that's very important. We're not here forever, but um, it's a very natural thing to fall back onto old habits and get frustrated and try something new and it doesn't work, and then just quickly abandoning that adjustment. And so it's really trying to celebrate the small wins as best you can, really seeing the positive, because it's so easy for us to focus on the losses, what didn't go well. Our brains are wired to see the negative, to be on the lookout for the negative. In fact, we even create the negative based on our fears. So we have to be very, very careful about what we think and about the fears that we hold, and that are um, likely not to happen. We worry, most of the things we worry about don't happen. And so we have to be mindful of that. But so just I help people focus on the things they did do well, the progress they have made, for them to see it, because again, they're seeing the gap between where they are now and where they'd like to be, and they're not there yet. So it's helping them recognize that, coaching them along, keeping the momentum, keeping revisiting the intentions, so they're clear and they're not all over the place, because we have so much information now. It's easy to get lost in lots of things people told you to do. And so it's helping them focus, and then you continue to, there's a saying that's incremental becomes exponential, right? So
Mm,
the more
yeah,
incremental progress we have, that can over time, like many things, become exponential.
that's good. Now, that this conversation is probably the exact reason the book came out, and that is, well, you're helping so many different folks one on one, but Jeff only has so much time, right? If only Jeff's hours were unlimited, well, he could help everyone in a one on one manner. But because there's only so much time, why don't I put some ideas and thoughts into a book? So talk a bit about the book, and, well, I mean, both books if you'd like, but certainly the newest one as well.
Sure. So my first book came out in '07, the best tennis of your life, and
Yeah.
it seemed to be a real go-to book. I think it was the third best-selling book in of all time in tennis psychology. It's still selling, and people find it. It's small but very accessible, and the format, and so practical, and I think inspirational. People seem to really enjoy that book, but I also wanted to have a book that really helped families, parents and kids together. This book is the second book is for all athletes and parents. There's a parent section, which is my goal is to have families and just having discussions, conversations about these very difficult, stressful moments. So the parents can know what the kids are learning in very, again, digestible format,
Yeah.
and and then the parents can really have some guidance on how to navigate this journey. So it is not just a pressure cooker and all of this urgency, but they create also the conditions for the kids. And when the kids are anxious and can't eat breakfast and they're saying I quit after they have a bad game, I never want to play
Yep.
again, that the parents are calm, the parents can empathize with it's an emotional moment, and tips on how to handle those stressful situations. And so yeah, this book I'm excited about. I think that it can really help a lot of families, and I'm getting a lot of good feedback on it. It is in an audiobook format too, which I think kids will like as well. Excuse me, and so I'm excited about this book, and we'll see where it all goes.
Absolutely. Now, I think that's a really good point of just because we are adults doesn't mean that we are sometimes more developed than the child is. Sometimes there's those emotional trauma bonds that you've had for years that you've never dealt with. And, they say it, but you see it frequently, the vicariously living through your kid, right? And putting something about an unmet goal or desire of your life onto them. And then, that can cause, friction in a relationship. Do you talk about that much? I'm sure you see it a bunch, but
Yeah, it's over the years it's come up a lot. I've had parents and kids in my office together separately, um, and oftentimes I help the athletes assert themselves and communicate because they're
yeah,
sometimes not sure how to do that. So I think that's really important for kids to be able to speak their mind and have parents listen to them, hear them, and empathize. I think it's really important. And so, yeah, families, parents, because they are human, they've had their own experience in sports and success, and maybe they've had a lot of success by working hard to get there. And then if their kids are not giving the same effort or have the same motivation, it can be very irritating spending money on the kids, and there can be sort of this transactional aspect that is irritating, and understandably on one hand because it is an investment, and if the kids say I want to be really good, and they have there are expectations on effort and they're not doing it, that's incongruent, and it creates problems. But um, I think that the more aware parents are about their impact on the kids, and the things they say, the way they say it, their energy ultimately um, really matters. Awareness can really help, and just take that pause to hit the reset button themselves, having their own remote control. So
yeah,
in these tough moments, that a lot of which they don't have control over at all, they're not the ones playing either. So if they see their kids, you know, hanging their head and being negative and putting low effort out, it's they can't control that, and that's where it gets to be really dicey, and can create a lot of conflict. So yeah, helping parents just step back, and helping the kids create more autonomy and more independence as well, more ownership over what they're doing, more intrinsic motivation. And that's the part that really needs to, the more parents can win that war and allow their kids to build that inner momentum, inner motivation, it's going to go a lot better than if it's constantly coming externally to them. So that's a big, I think, separation that I help create in the book.
amazing. Well, Jeff, are there any other pivotal moments or stories that you'd like to share?
Let's see. Well, I guess I mean the one that's just sort of funny, and I think reflective of the challenge that we were just talking about. I happened to be in the 45 World Championships in the finals, and I won. I told my dad, who hadn't seen me play for probably 10 years, um, to just come and enjoy the match. He was probably 88, in his early 80s at the time, and just come enjoy. This is not Wimbledon, and so he comes. Oh, Jeff, no problem. Of course, of course. So he's sitting in the stands. I win the first set. I think I won the first set 6-1 pretty handily. And as I'm walking over to on the changeover, my dad gets up in the stands and he yells, "You've got this, Jeff." So, and immediately my heart started pounding. I felt the expectations, as we talked about earlier, that now I'm supposed to win. I've got this, he says, right? And
Yep.
I'm irritated. I got hijacked, right? And I'm a sports psychologist. I help athletes deal with this all the time. And I got hijacked. My heart was pounding. I went down 4-1 in probably 10, 15 minutes. And I was blaming him in my head. It's his fault. He did this, and I can't believe it. In the finals of the worlds, and I stopped. This is sort of the metacognition, like knowing what you're thinking, knowing that you're the only one who can hit that button. So I
Yeah.
say, okay, Jeff, I go back to the fence. I look up, palm tree, get my, when you expand your view, it helps to not feel so threatened. I expanded my view.
Yeah.
I said, okay, now what? I smiled. Now what are you going to do? Now what are you
Hmm.
going to do? And the answer was step in, hit the ball,
Yep.
do it, release, go. So I committed to that one intention, hit through the ball. And I
Love it.
did. And I ended up coming back, 4-2, 4-3, 4. I beat him 6-4. And in the ceremony, I thanked my dad and forgave him, of course. But it was a moment where I had to, and by the way, it looks like a train wreck. I'm a sports psychologist. People are watching this situation. How am I going to handle this?
Yeah.
And I was able to hit that reset. And that's the choice point. That's the moment
Yep.
we all get. Are we going to go down the rabbit hole? Are we going to let the emotions run the show? Are we, are we going to put a stake in the ground? And that's what we all have available to us. I think one last quick point to sort of that overlaps with that. I was playing in the finals of the Nationals there, same court, and I was up 5-3 in the third, and I hit a shot, and that gave me match point. But the guy, my opponent, hit the ball, bounced out of the court, ball abuse. So the referee said ball abuse, game, set, and match. In other words, I won the point prior, but now he said I won the match. And I yelled no. I screamed no. A lot of people there watching, and the ref said, "You don't want the point?" And my whole life flashed before me. And this was like, a moment. I'm in the Nationals. I get a gold ball. I
Yeah.
win this. I'm up. It's match point. I've got the match in my hand. And I'm thinking, it was probably 7 seconds, 5 seconds, felt like an hour, I don't know, of what do you want to do? You want to, and I said, no, I don't want the point.
Hmm.
I don't want the point. Fine, replay the point. I went back. My heart was out through my chest, pounding. I'm like, go big or go home, because it was like,
Yeah.
you better just go after it. And I did, hit a good big serve. I won the point and I won the match. But that was a moment, where I had a choice. Do I want to win on my terms,
Yep.
or get the win? And I chose I chose mastery over the gold ball and the national title. And
Love it.
that was a hard moment, but I'm glad I did it. And it definitely, I think, was reflective of my entire philosophy, of what I've been doing for so many years.
Amazing. Well, Jeff, I want to say thanks for sharing your journey and your story today, and all the amazing things that you've done and will continue to do. And we'll be doing this again, I'm sure, in 4 or 5 years when the third book comes out, and we'll be talking about that.
Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be great. Great to be with you. Great questions. I enjoyed the connection today. Thank you.
You're right.